Hey, welcome to HR Famous, brought to you by Kinetics, the leading RPO recruiting firm for growth companies. Named by HRO Today as the top midsize RPO provider, Kinetics uses its unique skill-based recruiter model to deliver on RPO engagements, allowing them to customize scope to meet your unique hiring needs. If you have recruiting challenges and want to consider RPO as a solution, give Kinetics a call. Find them online at kineticshr.com. HR Famous is also brought to you by HRU Tech, a contingent staffing firm specializing in engineering, IT, and technically related placements across multiple industries. If you're looking for technical talent or searching for a career, look no further than HRU Tech. Find them online at hrutech.com and call them today.
HR Famous, guys. What's up? It's another week in paradise, lockdown. You know, at the beginning, Chris used to say it's day 45, it's day 107. Now we're on year 2, day
Year
whatever.
Day 377.
It is insane. Well, you guys hear the voices of my friends, Chris Dunn, Tim Sackett, looking sharp actually today. Chris with a collared shirt, Tim with his typical athleisure wear. Not so bad.
Athleisure wear.
Athleisure wear. How's it going, guys? What's going on?
I got my shot. Did we talk about that? I got my first shot.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Ooh, I got my first shot, so I'm excited. It was funny. Actually, the lady that gave me the shot, it was like a drive-through thing. Like I just stuck your shoulder out the window kind of thing. She was more excited for me than I was. She was just like, when I got my shot, I was like uplifting. I floated out of here. And I'm like, okay. Like,
What time of day was that, Tim? What time of day did you get it? Because that seems like 9 o'clock energy, not 5:30 energy.
It was noon energy. And again, there's lines. Like this is like they actually took like you'll love this. They took an old Sears auto parts or auto service center that had like 8 bays, and they run 8 lanes of traffic. Like the local hospital kind of like leased this out, and so when they even say it like when they go, oh shit. So half of it is actually testing and half of it's vaccine. So they have testing and vaccine going all at the same time through 8 bays, and then there's like 10 cars or more like lined up behind each bay. So, I mean, again, a good, effective way to do it. But, yeah, she was super excited for me. And I was just like, okay, yeah. Hey.
I love it. You know,
Did you high-five her, Tim?
No, you can't touch each other.
Couldn't touch each other.
No, you shouldn't touch each other.
Air high-five?
Yeah. It's like a little fist bump. Called it the COVID juice. She laughed at that. I go, give me some of that COVID juice. She's like, I'm going to use that.
So you can't touch each other. We're also going to talk about other scenarios in which we should not touch each other. I'll get to that in a moment. But because this is an HR recruiting show, I actually have floated to people that these vaccination sites, like I hope people are recruiting there. Like that's a great place to be, handing out some flyers, some recruiting cards. Like people have to wait, 15 minutes after you get your shot or you're supposed to. So like you're sitting there just scrolling. So pro tip, guys, vaccination sites as recruiting grounds. Someone better.
That is a pro tip.
Yeah. Wow. And you're getting people who are vaccinated who aren't going to infect other people. I mean, look at that.
In the middle of the day, they're probably not working, probably out of a job.
No. Could there be anything broader than that recruiting? Like
it's the whole funnel.
Can we go?
Everybody.
Can we go like Zip Recruiter, like times 1,000? Just for that recruiting
that's
strategy.
Facebook.
I like it,
it's
JLee.
Facebook.
I'm having fun, right? But that's a broad recruiting strategy. Also, I would tell you have to watch the age discrimination. Like watch the people who were cold on that strategy at the start and now all of a sudden are warming up. Like as we get through the percentages of Americans who have been vaccinated, you might find somebody that didn't want the old Gen X or young boomers, but all of a sudden it's pretty cool, like with the strategy. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm Mr. Sunshine.
Mr. Sunshine today. Well, a strategy is better than no strategy is what I would say. So.
Have you guys got your shots? Yeah.
No.
Scheduled? No. Can't get yours in the DC area. Birmingham.
No. You gotta
they don't give them out in Alabama, so.
Soon enough, though, we will get our shots. All right. So here's what we're talking about today. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I wasn't sure like when and if I really like I've been noodling on it. So, we've had the Me Too movement, not that it's gone away, but that's been a thing in our orbit and world for a while. And, I think one of the things that's come up as a result of the Me Too movement is just much more conversation around people's personal experiences being harassed or dealing with things of the like. And I think even like for my husband and other men I know, like they've been surprised by how many women have been harassed in the workplace or dealt with some of these issues. And that was surprising to me. Like one of the outputs that people were so surprised. I'm like, well, yeah, I can raise my hand and tell you about my own experiences as well. And so I think what I love about this is there's opportunity to talk, share stories. And my hope has actually been to, share stories in order for people to learn like, oh my gosh, it's happening to your friends. It's happened to your sister. It's happened. And it's likely happening in your workplace. So what I wanted to do with today's pod was I don't think I told you guys the story of the time I was sexually harassed at work. And I think it's like, I wanted to tell you guys the story and talk about it like as friends, but also I think there's a really interesting dynamic of the HR person being sexually harassed, right? And what do I as an HR person do in that situation? And then I also like I've been trying to reflect over the years of like one of my early HR jobs was as a quote unquote EEO officer, and I had to do harassment and discrimination investigation in that capacity, and I was young in that job, and so it's a really interesting story in my head of like, okay, well that happened, and how do I look at this differently, or how do I look at it today? So I'm going to tell you guys the story, and then let's chat about it. And the disclosure I'll give is it didn't happen in the job and employer I have today. I won't say where it happened, just out of respect, but I'll tell you guys the story. So here is what happened. I'm an HR professional. I get an assignment to go overseas. So I go overseas to another office, and I was still on assignment as an HR professional in this assignment. And someone was having a going away party, and so I'm new to the office, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna go to the going away party too. Like I'm gonna be like, show them like
cool
I'm not
HR person.
yeah, HR person. So I go to the going away party, and it was at a bar, and then it moved to a club after that. And so I was at the bar. People are kind of in a circle, standing around talking, and I'm chit-chatting with people. Yeah, there was some and it was dark. It was dark. And so, this was after hours. It was not in the office. It was after hours, but it was, people from the office all together, and we're like standing in a circle talking, and like this creeper who I didn't realize he was a creeper, one of the guys who turned out to be a little bit of a creeper came up behind me and started talking to me, and I'm like, you're a little bit close, and then I felt his hand grab my ass. Oh, I don't know. So I'm like, and I looked at him and I said, get away from me, get off. He kind of smirked and then like creeped away, and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? I think something just happened. The guy comes back around and starts trying to talk to me again, and again grabbed me from behind. And I looked at him and I said, you need to back off. And he just kind of smirked. And so he like walked away, but like I could see him watching me from wherever he was. Like he was like eyes on me, trying to like follow, and like as if like maybe if he kept making eye contact with me, like I would be charmed
wear
by
you
it or
down.
something.
Yeah.
So it was really uncomfortable, and I wasn't sure like, okay, do I just leave? Like, what do I do? I wasn't sure what to do. And so because he kept watching me, I just got increasingly uncomfortable. And so I just said to folks, hey, I'm going to leave. Like, I'm going to call it a night. So I quickly
With bodyguards. Yeah.
Yeah, but he followed me. So he followed me out, and like my heart was pounding, and I'm like, I'm in a country, in a city that I don't know that well. I'm not even actually sure how I'm going to get back to the place that I was staying. I didn't want him to follow me to where I was. And so like my heart is pounding. He's following me, trying to come up to me. And I don't remember, this was before like you pay by phone and Uber and stuff. And I don't remember like how I got to this decision, but he's following me. I go to a cash machine. I pull out some cash, and he is like right in front of me trying to talk to me. And I just grabbed my cash and I said, you need to get away from me. And I literally ran, I hailed a cab, and I just got out of there. And so that's what happened. I get back to where I was staying, and I'm like heart pounding. I'm like, what is happening? I'm not sure what just happened. And I think had he not followed me aggressively, I might have been less intimidated by the situation. It was just some creeper trying to, hit on me or whatever. But the fact that he followed me out and was like so like physically close to me and like trying to chase after me, I was like, this is not good. So I was in a different time zone. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't married at that time. I had a boyfriend. But I emailed my boss back in the US and I said, I just need to tell you what happened. Like, I'm really freaked out. I know it's a different time zone. As soon as you wake up, can you please call me because I don't know what to do about this situation. And so time zones were such where I went back into the office the next day and they hadn't yet woken up. But I was like, I guess I got to go to work and like go in. So I go back into the office and I see him. We avoid eye contact. I go straight back to where the HR office is. And I told a few people because I was like, I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. Like, US hasn't woken up and we haven't talked about it. I tell one non-HR person who says to me, yeah, that's why we try to keep him away from the interns. And I'm like, oh God, that's not good. And then there's only one other HR person in the office. And I told her, and she said to me, oh, he's Welsh. They're that way. And I just was like, okay, I'm in a different world. I don't know what's happening. Maybe culturally something else is okay here. And so there were these responses and it just was an insane situation. And I ended up finally talking to my boss and we kind of talked through things. I ended up confronting the guy that day, but that happened to me. And I think what was so crazy to me was one, who does that to an HR person? But two, it's prevalent, it's everywhere. And there's lots of things that we can kind of draw out from the story, but that is the gist of what happened to me in my 20s. And I don't wish that experience on anyone else ever. So that's the story. We can keep drawing it out, but I won't pause because I just
Jay, how many women under 30? I mean, it could be under 40, 50, whatever. How many women do you what percent of female employees have had an experience like that? I mean, ballpark it for me. What do you think? It's way over 50, right?
Well, to the extent where there is actual a physical thing and I think there's plenty of harassment that happens, and I would say it's well over 50% where it's not always blurring the line of there being a physical thing and kind of in the way that I experienced it, but verbal or other kinds of sexual harassment, yes, well over 50%.
So, and then you ran into, I'm sure you ran into the the he said she said stuff potentially, because if nobody else witnessed it, I mean, they could have witnessed him coming and talking to you, but no one knows, or not, maybe they didn't witness him trying to grab you. I think that's the hardest part of this, right? As HR people, we have to investigate this stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to go and investigate sexual harassment where it's just the two people, right?
Yeah.
And you're and again, through the Me Too stuff, it was always oh, believe the victim. But the HR person in me is no, because I've actually had, males and females come clean and say, hey, I made that up, or I was pissed off, or whatever. Now, again, is that a big percentage? No, it's a tiny percentage, but it still happens. So you can't just carte blanche go 100% of the time we're going to believe a victim, because there's crazy people out there.
Yeah.
that
we hire.
I'll piggyback on what Tim said. So, Jessica, you mentioned before you started the story that, in a previous position, right, you had to do a lot of investigations. You had to break a lot of stuff down, probably including this type of stuff. My questions, I guess I want to go to the end and then work backwards to understand and kind of learn from this and ask you questions about your experiences. So a couple of confounding variables right away that I heard. You're overseas. You're not in America. Yep. You're in another culture, and you're outside the physical workplace. Now, before anybody sends me were you wearing a short skirt, by the way? Can we get let's add some more stuff onto that. Yeah. Inappropriately dressed. Yeah. But those are confounding variables. This is a while back, so I want to know. The reason I asked you, or I kind of pointed all that out, is I want to know what happened like once you reported it? Can you share that? Because
Yeah.
that would kind of guide like what I want to learn from this, which is a lot, obviously.
Yeah. Well, so I think it's a great question. So even when I was like in my own shoes at that point in time, like as an HR person, I was also thinking about like a few variables, and I was thinking about things as a woman. I'm like, okay, well, this was technically after hours. It wasn't a sanctioned work event. Like it was clearly a going away party, but it wasn't like here's our official, going away party. It was people getting together. There was alcohol. I'm pretty sure I had a few drinks, and I know he was inebriated. Or at least I assume he was. So there were those factors. So here's what happened in the end. I'm not sure why I made this decision, but I said to my boss and our HR leader, I was like, I don't want you guys to do anything about it. Like, I was like, let me go talk to him, and like, I'm not like filing in a complaint and saying you need to investigate this. I said, let me go talk to him and let me just deal with it on a one-on-one basis, which might have been a mistake, but that's what I wanted to do at that moment. So I went up to him that same day, maybe at the end of the day, and I was like, I need to talk to you right now. So I went into a conference room, and he looked a little nervous, and I said, I just need you to know that I remember explicitly what you did yesterday, and that is completely inappropriate. And I think I said to him something, to the effect of, I'm telling you this as an HR person, but I'm also telling you this just as a woman and as an individual. Like, you should not, and I like, how dare you try to treat someone that way? And he said he didn't remember it, but did say, he said, we all were drinking a lot yesterday, and I don't think I ate anything. So maybe if I did anything inappropriate, it was on an empty stomach. But
not good enough, by the way.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Related to his response, for sure. Not good enough.
Yeah.
No accountability.
No
Hey, by the way-
accountability.
By the way, Jay, like in today's world, we would never allow a victim to address, that situation, right? As HR people.
Let's start there, Tim, and
Yeah.
let's bring JLee into this conversation. I thought, and Tim, I'll throw it back to you, but I think that's a great place to start, because a lot of people listening to Jessica's story would say, was that the right call to allow a strong woman to take control of the situation and try and resolve it? I think a lot of people would say legally that's not the right call, but Jessica asked for that. So Jessica, as you think about that, like a few years later, like if somebody reported that to you and they wanted the ability, and by the way, we're not talking about like legal considerations at your company, but just you as a leader, would you want to give them that capability to try and handle it on their own?
Probably not. Like in retrospect, I probably wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think because you were an HR pro, because you were an HR leader, like you were given that ability, right? Where they said, okay, we think you have the training, you can do this. We would never allow a non-HR person to do that.
Well, that's true, Tim, for sure.
And even today, I don't think we would allow an HR person to address their accuser. We would, and being alone in a room with them, right? We would have some representation of HR there with them to document any of that stuff, just from a risk standpoint.
The funny part of it probably was let her in the room with him, and she's gonna like smack him around and take him down, and whatever happens is gonna happen.
Yeah. Better times.
Well.
Jessica, so you're a strong woman leader. I work for a strong woman leader. Like, do you think that even today in 2021, that a lot of, and by the way, I agree with everything Tim said. We would not, like, we've got to figure that out and address it, especially, people made the offhand comment to you. That's why we keep them away from the interns, right? Not the first time. So I don't think any of the three of us would say you can handle that. But Jessica, like your experience, strong female leaders, do they want to handle it on their own rather than turn it over? I think that's an interesting question. Not that we would give them the capability in 2021 to do that. I think that's common, like in like a woman leader who's really achieved a lot. Thoughts?
Pace of change in the world of business is fast, and that drives incredible complexity for the world of human resources.
Welcome to the HR Data Lab's Brown Bag Lunch, a series of conversations with experts inside and outside the world of human resources on how to innovate, measure, and evolve our practices.
Our goal is to help provide you with practical examples of how HR has to change and to meet in this complex business environment.
Every week, we'll talk to new and different voices on all aspects of human resources.
And guess what? You get to chat with us live.
Live?
Live.
So they can answer questions or they can ask us questions.
They can ask, they can answer, whatever they want. They get to talk with us live.
That's awesome.
Sometimes we geek out on the data and technology that underlie the processes that drive the world of HR.
But the conversations are always insightful and fun. So please enjoy the HR Data Labs Brown Bag Lunch.
Yeah. No, I think that was part of it. It was like I felt like I'm just going to handle this. Like I don't need help. I'm going to handle it, and I'm going to make sure like my voice is heard with him on what I thought was appropriate or inappropriate. So I think that that was part of it. But I also think a part of it was for the only other HR person that was on site, for them to say to me, like, well, he's Welsh, that's, kind of okay. I didn't have confidence in the other, person around me who was in HR. And then I didn't
You were the
know,
crazy
like,
American, uptight
yeah.
American. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I didn't know like the leadership of that office that well personally, where I had confidence in them. So I was like, I'm just handling this. Like, I got this and I'm going to figure out. But
Jay,
what I'll, yeah.
No, I got a question. Do you feel that was a fireable offense? Like that person should have been fired? Because this is really what brings up, it's the he said, she said part of this, where whoever accuses the other, they always feel like that person should be fired. And some probably should, some probably shouldn't. We don't know. But the hardest part as an HR pro is to go, okay, we're going to fire somebody over what you said without any evidence besides the he said, she said stuff. So I'm wondering, do you feel it was a fireable offense? Because you made all the excuses of after work, non-sanctioned, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, you have to come to work and see this asshole, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you say this last part of like I had to come to work and see this guy because and then I'll answer your question because that's actually the thing that I've thought a lot about that I bet other women or people, it's not, this is not just women, that people deal with, whether it's someone who harasses them, someone who bullies them. Like that for me was probably like the worst part of it was I had to see his face every day. I would run into him in like the coffee room and I would just be like sick to my stomach of like, ugh, like I cannot believe you are still here and then I have to look at you. Like I was like furious about that often. And so I hated that. I think to your question of was it a fireable offense? I guess, when I've thought about this, like I've always wondered, okay, like people would make comments around like, well, that's why we keep them away from the interns. Like there was somewhat of a known pattern that seemed to be out there and pervasive and kind of commonly like a joke amongst people. And so when I put like my HR hat on and not like my personal hat of like having experienced this, that's one thing I have wondered like in retrospect is if like people really dug into this and, tried to figure out like, was there a pattern and what do people know? My guess would be that there would have been enough that pointed to the fact that this was not an isolated incident. And then it was not just this incident that should be a fireable offense. It maybe is a broader, longer known pattern of things that tells us he shouldn't be in this workplace.
Hey, and Jessica, I'll build on that a little bit because one of Tim's like valid points is a lot of times, and we've all got like backgrounds in HR doing investigations. By the way, real quick, and then I want to break down one point on this. Jessica, do you miss doing investigations?
No.
I do.
You do?
I miss it from an employee relations perspective. I miss trying to find the truth and going through a question string to get to the best possible outcome. Tim, real quick, do you miss investigations? Yes or no? And then I want to break down the he said she said factor on this.
I don't miss the part of it where it's a no-win situation on both sides, right?
Okay.
Like if you investigate and you truly feel the one person truly feels like something happened to them that is just destructive, right, to them, and the other person truly feels like that, like they truly didn't, that was not their intent or that's not what they came across. And again, an example being, we had an investigation, Katie, where there was a female employee who was pregnant, right? and she was talking about how fat she felt and blah blah blah. Now again, this happened to be in a group of people, and then one of the guys made a comment saying, I think pregnant women are beautiful, blah blah blah, right? And so she actually claimed harassment, and then there are people that were there that had witnesses, right, that were like, no, but like again, in her mind, she, that was harassment. But so there's that no-win situation. Now I had some really fun ones, at Applebee's where we had we had a couple restaurants that had a really high kind of gay population, and you'd have like male on male harassment where it was basically one guy got turned down by the other for dating, but he was dating the other server and that he used to date, and it was like this triangle of just being pissed off at each other, and they were trying to get each other fired. And like those are fun because you unravel their stories and find out this is just a love triangle, you idiots, stop it, or I'm going to fire you all.
Yeah. So I miss it, and I miss trying to get to the truth. So JLee, all the way back to your like situation, and the fact that you took it like on yourself to address it. I think we've all agreed in today's world that probably doesn't happen. Yeah. And Tim, I think the obvious like path here on the he said she said with this one related to Jessica, right? It's one of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. You go into this one and you reserve this guy for last. And you start with Jessica. Mm-hmm. She reports like the comments that other people have made. You figure out the best path to go get that information, and all of a sudden you're at a different place. It's not he said, she said, right? You're asking follow-up questions to say, tell me why you say we keep them away from the interns. Exactly. And that goes to like 4 other people. Yep. You interview them, you get the information, and then when you finally talk to him, you have everything you need to like present it to him, try and extract information, and like make an employment call. And Tim, I know you know all that, but I just think it's interesting. I think the path was there, Jessica, like mm-hmm. in your situation, to get to an outcome. Now, not he's Welsh, whatever, right? The country you were in, the culture, none of it is an excuse even 5 to 10 years ago. But I think, I'm guessing that's a real thing in other cultures. I don't travel a lot. Maybe. I'm mostly domestic based, but I think an investigation should have happened, and I think they would have had a shot, Jessica, to remove the guy if they wanted to.
It's interesting when I like think back about like why I was adamant I'm going to handle this. Like when it happens within HR, here's like the other interesting dynamic. When I finally talked to my boss, the woman I worked for at that time, she was like a mama bear, super protective, fiercely protective of me and her team. And she like was livid that this had happened to me. And, like before I could really say much and like explain and kind of tell them what happened, I had put it in an email to them. Her first words were, "Tell me who the MFer is." And I was like, it doesn't matter. She's like, "No, I need to know who the MFer is." And I actually was concerned that she was so protective and livid that she was going to do something that maybe wasn't good for any of us. And so that was another factor where I was like, okay, wait a minute, this is not good. I've got like my boss who is probably ready to kill this guy, who probably would hop on a plane if I asked her to and like take him out herself, where I was like, no, like let me handle this, because I don't know what's going to happen if I tell you, like you're going to be lighting up the phones right now and like probably doing something. And so that was the other reason why I was like, let me handle it before like this escalates. And so it's like even within our own HR team, I was like, I need to kind of get this, like pull the reins in a little bit, because it had the potential to be like really ugly. So it was a very like specific action in my head also of like, I don't want this to spiral out of control, which is, you would only do that if you're an HR person. Like if I weren't in HR, like I probably wouldn't have this concern of how do I make sure HR stays like intact and, it's not a spiraled situation.
Hey, and by the way, like for my money, the fact that this was offsite, bar, club, whatever, none of it matters, right? Because that extends from the workplace and comes back in the workplace. So all of us in 2021 are still responsible for making those calls with the actions. Kind of like I always tell people, Jessica, have a professional conduct policy. Obviously,
Yep.
you've got an anti-harassment policy, but you also have professional conduct policy that is just written broadly, as I think most harassment policies would be as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the, I mean, again, it's the most difficult thing I think we face as HR pros, is to have to go out and really make determinations on this stuff, because again, you have employees who feel so strongly one way, like, this happened to me, it's egregious, something has to be done, and in their mind it's termination or jail time, or I mean, it's big, right, in their mind. And any slap on the hand, you just failed that employee, and that employee's probably going to leave, right? And by the way, both employees might probably leave, because now the other one feels like they have a target on their back because they just got a written warning or got talked to or whatever. Like, it's just a crappy situation all the way around. I feel for female executives in the C-suite when we see this in the news come out, where it usually ends up with a buyout or something will happen because, like, they're like, oh, this CHRO who's female got hit on by a COO. And we're told all along as HR leaders, we're trained that, like, oh, the COO is the one that probably should be let go, right? And then somehow we always see the female getting some buyout and just kind of walking away, and it's almost like a shameful walk away, because, the other person's still in their role and still in the company. But but it's a he said, she said thing that you can't get away from, which I think is just, it's so problematic.
Jessica, do you feel like culturally, like, you probably traveled more than any of us. Do you feel in 2021 that other cultures have caught up with the expectation of just conduct in the workplace related to, sexual harassment and things like that? Have any, like what's the playing field in terms of levels? Any thoughts about that as somebody who's traveled more than Tim and I?
I don't think the rest of the world has caught up. I think that there are pockets that are probably a little bit more progressive than others. And I would say I was in a very progressive country. But I don't think the world has caught up. I think there's, social, cultural, norms around gender, power that are still in play. In some countries, of course, still legal things as well. So I don't think it's caught up. No. Like, I could still envision this happening in 2021, even in the country I was in. I mean, this is in Europe.
Jessica, would you be more confident that this would, and this is for your former company, nothing current, would you be more confident with any employer that if you were stateside and your story happened, that it would be resolved and handled efficiently and like with the right outcomes than if you were working for a company and you were abroad and encountered that culture? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe I'm optimistic that it would have. I mean, I think, like, as we've talked about, like, there are things that weren't done right, and in retrospect, I wouldn't have done it in the same way. And so I feel like, especially in light of what's happened over the years with Me Too and otherwise, there's probably like a greater awareness or cognizance of how to handle, but maybe also, unfortunately, like the downstream and what could play out in the media or social media or otherwise, if not handled in the right way. And so there's probably like a heightened sense of things, is my guess. Yeah.
A great example of that, Jessica, is the NCAA tournament basketball. And I know you're not a sports person, but the men, women, the disparity, this inequity stuff that happened this last week, we guilted as a society the NCAA into going, hey, wait a minute, the women didn't get enough lifting equipment or didn't get enough whatever. There's like some articles I've read about, like, this is what we do now as a society, right? So as HR leaders, before we would go, because I always think it was probably a 50-50 proposition, Jay, if you brought that to executives or to HR executives, that the right thing was going to happen. There was some, they might fire the person, they might sweep it under the rug, give them a hand slap, whatever. But at the end of the day, you had a 50-50 shot that the right thing for you was going to happen. And most women were like, do I really want to roll the dice with that and have that kind of that scarlet letter of my career within this company to do that? And so that's why so many just walked away. But now I think because of the social media, because of the power I think we have as a society to push corporate brands, they have to rethink that constantly, right? They can't just go and say, well, we're just going to give that person a hand slap. And so then we see some of the other maybe companies going too far sometimes on people. But again, it's a small number versus the vast number that probably the right thing is happening. But to me, an example of that is what we saw with now again, people could argue and say, well, wait a minute, the NCAA should have had equal stuff. But if you go, well, wait a minute, the men's NCAA tournament brings in over $1 billion. The women's probably loses money. Calm down on what you think somebody should have and not have based on money, because it's not a Title IX issue, right? Title IX is about having equal opportunity from a scholarship standpoint. It has nothing to do with an NCAA tournament thing. But as a society, we've determined, no, this is what's equitable, and we're going to push for it, and we're going to guilt them into doing this, which really kind of happened. Whether you agree with that or not, I'm saying that's just a great example, I think, of how we push corporations, to kind of do the right thing nowadays, which I believe is the right. I mean, I think the NCAA did the wrong thing and had to catch up and do the right thing.
One thing I wonder about is,
KD, do you want to respond to that?
do you want to respond?
I'm just like poker face into the camera here.
Not very good.
Get back
face.
to JLee's story. Just want to get back to JLee's story.
Well,
Okay.
here's a thing that I'm curious of your guys' take on. So I liked your question, Chris, around do I miss doing investigations? I don't personally. Like I think, because I was also early in my career, I was always petrified of like, did I really make the right decision? Like if it's a he said, she said, and you only have a certain amount of evidence, and some of that is not even like, it's all based on interviews and conversations. And so I never felt 100% confident of like myself, and maybe it's also because I was early in my career. One thing I do think about though sometimes is having now been sexually harassed in my career and going through that experience, I don't know like if that would make me a better or worse person to take on investigations. Like what kind of bias do I potentially, bring to a situation? And it's also just kind of made me wonder about like, the bias anyone has in that situation because of their own experiences or their friends having gone through something or whatever. And it's just like it's an interesting thought in my mind around like, how does that change someone's experiences having lived through it or gone through it? Like how objective and unbiased can someone be?
It's great self-insight. Yeah.
JLee, that's kind of why I asked you like along the lines of, just tying all these pieces together. You are obviously probably really good at investigations. You would be good at that if you had to do that today. The fact that you had experienced it, as long as you were aware, like of what that did to you in the room with the accused, as long as you were aware of that, you would still be super strong. And then going back to like some of the points we've heard about corporations have to rethink this, you would be really, for lack of a better word, you would be the protector of all the people that this happened to that aren't high enough up or weren't involved with a high up enough like man in corporate America for it to bust into the media, right? There's this iceberg. There's like what we see on Business Insider, like, and then there's everything below the waterline, and it's the financial analyst, right, at a power company that
customer service rep
is on the road and experiences something like you, and that will never hit the media. Like totally. They'll never be accountable. So I would tell you that I think it makes you better at doing that in my eyes, as long as you've done what you've already done, which is know that you're going to be like, you're going to feel things in the room with the accused. And you just have to be cold, calculated to do what we all do when we do investigations, which is to get the admission. Let's face it. That's what we're there for. We're there to either to get the admission or to get some kind of 60% admission. And then we say, thank you, I'm out.
There is an art to it, though. Like, I think there are people who are really, really good at it. Like, the best employee relations person I've ever seen in my life. I'm still in awe of her. It wasn't a harassment investigation, but it was some kind of unethical behavior situation where I had to be involved in it. And it's like, I sit in awe. I'm like, my gosh, you should be like an FBI investigator or something else. So the folks who are good at it, man, that is it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'll give a shout. I mean, one of my former bosses, Jackie Justy, was a former military police investigator.
Whoa.
Holy crap. Like, to see her go through that and see an investigation and how she would question people, like, she would literally wear them down to the point where they were, like, crying, giving it up everything that she wanted. Like, I was just like, wow, that's amazing.
It is
And there's different styles, right? There's like, what I would perceive as the military investigator. And then there's the like super empathetic that's wearing people down in a really soft way and making people like slip up. And it's kind of like the old adage that like one of my former HR managers and I used to joke, JLee and Tim, we used to say that like it would be words to the effect of, you had the gun, right? You had the gun, and let's face it, they had it coming. And you're just looking, right, to like draw them in. And yeah. That's the thing. It's great. I mean, it's go ahead, JLee. Sorry.
No, go.
No, I was just going to throw it back to you. Say it's it's a really interesting story, and it's interesting to talk about whether you would do things differently and how you would like serve somebody that came to you as a talent leader today, especially somebody that considers themselves to be a powerful woman who can handle it themselves. It's just super interesting.
Well, being, the consummate HR professional that I am, I'm actually tempted to go back into my email archives because I know I forwarded to myself copies of the email and like the responses from the company, my boss and her boss and all of that. So we'll put that in the liner notes for everyone. We'll post it somewhere so you can get the play-by-play of my personal documentation of the situation. Just kidding. But I think I am going to go back and read through it because now I'm just curious of my documentation skills during that point in my career as an HR person. But I've wanted to talk about this just because I've not been able to dissect it with other HR people. So that's kind of like the fun of it is like there's a personal angle, of course, but also kind of actually, being a nerd and geeking out about like some of the technicalities of it. I've never done that with other HR people. So that was fun. Thanks
for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks
No,
for
but I
sharing,
thought
JLee.
we had to do this topic at some point. And I appreciate you guys, listening and being game and being thoughtful. Like, I'm reading your faces and like it's actually interesting to kind of watch your facial expressions as like we're going through this story. So
and next week we'll talk about how Katie harassed me at HR Tech in 2017.
Yes, let's do that one next. I want to hear that because I mean, how you probably.
By the way, it would be me because I hug everybody, so I'm sure.
And I
I'm sure it's just a matter of time.
I never shared a room with a colleague again. JLee, that's how that story.
Oh my gosh, I have a great colleague sharing hotel room story. So.
Let's not make.
We got to do
share
it sometime.
All right. Well, that is HR Famous for today. I am Jessica Lee, the one who, got harassed and decided to try to handle it on my own. He is Chris Dunn, misses the art of, getting to the facts and all of that. Tim, please don't hug people, even though you've now been vaccinated. I mean, people still like their distance, but we know you're a lover, not a hater. But that's HR Famous, guys. Have a good one.